I talk to Tom now. I mean, he's like, I can't believe how good I feel. You know, he's 66 like me. So his knees were a mess from being a carpenter his whole life, you know, and he had all sorts of joint problems. I mean, he's like, I can't believe how good this is. I'm like, yeah, hello, good morning. Only been trying to tell you this for the last 5 years, you know? So, you know, but yeah, no, you know, something, yes, you can make an argument that it's the medicine. No. But I'm sorry. He is in such good shape right now. I would dare anybody to find me somebody with multiple myeloma 5 months after diagnosis who looks like Tom.
Welcome, Melissa. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Where are you currently located?
I am in the historic town of Tappan, New York.
Oh, okay. Tappan.
So
What?
Up from the city.
Why is it?
Because I live across the street from where George Washington came to see Andre when he was hung for treason.
When he came to see who when he was hung?
Andre.
Who's Andre?
Andre was hung. Andre was a traitor and worked with Benedict Arnold. And so he was hung here. And that is at what's called the DeWitt House. I live right across the street from it. So,
oh wow,
historic place.
There's no ghosts or anything running around there, are there?
No, not there. Thank God.
No ghosts.
Anyway, I have an amazing story for you.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it.
Carnivore healing. Yeah, it to me it's amazing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just jump on in.
Go, right? You go for it. Go ahead. I'll sit back and relax and enjoy it. Then go ahead. Tell me about what's going on.
Thank you. Okay, my carnivore journey starts in 2016 with my then 31-year-old daughter, who was diagnosed with brain cancer. With I forgot the technical name for it. In any case, she's diagnosed with brain cancer, and I go nuts trying to figure out how to save my daughter's life. So I came across you on World Carnivore Tribe in that time. Mm-hmm. 2016, I think that's when that was sort of all starting up. A couple of other places online, and Facebook that were doing the, I got so excited about it. I tried to get her interested in it and I just couldn't do it. For one reason or the other, her decision was to go, typical treatment of, I'm losing words here. Just a very typical treatment for cancer.
Okay. Chemotherapy, radiation, that type of stuff.
Chemo and radiation, yeah.
Okay.
So she does this, and unfortunately, she dies in January of 2017.
Oh, sorry.
So 1 year later. So now back up 3 months, and I, who am 60 years old at that time, postmenopausal, I start bleeding out. I have no idea what's going on, but I can't deal with it because Mary's sick, and it's just not a good time. I can't do anything about this until July of 2017, when they decide I need a full hysterectomy, right? So I get that done. And post surgery, the doctor says to me, oh my God, you've got, endometrial cancer, you need chemo, you need radiation, we're going to have to start this right away. And I look at him and I said, no. And I literally said no. And I turned around and I walked out. And what I thought of was you. All right. I said, you know what? Eff it. I'm going carnivore. I'm going full carnivore and we're going to see what happens, kind of thing. Right. So now I have to be very honest with you, Dr. Baker. I did not go 100%. I was doing maybe 3 weeks of carnivore and then I'd go and eat every donut in a 20-mile radius. It was horrifying. My sugar addiction, still kicking in, unfortunately, at that point. However, you know what? I kept doing that. I just kept going back to carnivore and going back to carnivore. So now, fast forward now to April of 2020 and make the decision, no more sugar. I'm done. And I do that for 14 months, bringing us to June of 2021. I go to my husband's cardiologist and he said, I really want a CAC score, right? I want to do a calcium score. And he's like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. So I get one and I'm all of a 13, which, in my mind was stupendously great. I wasn't a 0, but I thought for myself, a 13 was a really good score. So I'm just all excited about it. You know what he says to me? He says, don't worry. It always gets worse. We'll put you on statins. I looked at him and I said, excuse me? I said, no, you won't. And I turned around and I walked out. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. So anyway, at that point, unfortunately, I kind of backed up and went back into the 3 weeks carnivore, 1 day crazy, mode that I had started earlier, But now fast forward from there to January of this year. First of all, my health is fantastic. Okay, there's nothing wrong with me. And I almost completely forget the fact that I'm supposed to be sick. Like that just doesn't happen for me. I let go of it, right? So now January of 2022, this year, my beloved husband, who, typical Italian, pasta and ice cream are gods. He comes home from work. He's a carpenter. He comes home from work. He says, I twisted funny under a desk and my back's gone out, right? I'm like, oh, that's bad. Well, we can't do anything to get it fixed. Finally, now we're heading towards the end of January, finally get an MRI. And it shows that he has 2 compressed vertebrae. And there's spots around it saying that, this is I multiple myeloma. And so from there, we're like, oh my God, what do we do? And I tried to get him into Columbia Presbyterian. I could not do it. It was just one thing after the other. We end up rushing him into Sloan Kettering in the city, in Manhattan. And, one thing and another, now he's put on regular chemo, no radiation, just regular chemo. And they do this surgery. I don't know. I'm sure you know what it is. Kyphoplasty, Kyphoplasty. What they do is they put cement into your vertebrae.
Yeah, it's called a kyphoplasty. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't say it right. I thought they were kidding. When they first told me this, I started laughing. I'm like, oh, that's hysterical. No, they're like, yeah, no, this is what we do. I'm like, okay. Anyway, so that was February 9th that he went in. February 21st, he comes out. Now, he can't walk. He's in agony. He's lost 20 pounds. He's on every painkiller you could possibly imagine, fentanyl, oxycodone, everything, and he's just not doing well. And I'm the lovely wife. I turned to him on that day he comes home and I said to him, look, this is the way it goes. You're either going to go full carnivore right this minute or I'm packing and I'm leaving because I refuse to go through with you what I went through with my daughter, right? I mean, I was just hardcore. And of course, this poor man is in no shape to say no to me, right? And so he goes along with it. And I start feeding him bacon, eggs, ribeyes, strip steaks, some lamb, not a lot, some lamb, but, as much red meat as I can get into this man's mouth, that's what I'm doing, right? All right, here's the kicker. This is insanity to me. 5 weeks, he's off of every single painkiller, every single one. He's off of all medication. He's having no issues whatsoever. Now, it takes a while for him to get his weight back up, right? That didn't happen in 5 weeks. But what we noticed, which was crazy, at least to me was crazy, he had what I'm going to call spontaneous nosebleeds, which may or may not have been related to the multiple myeloma, which started sort of a year before he was diagnosed, completely gone. And he had horrible hemorrhoids. I'm sorry, just gross. But horrible hemorrhoids, which he'd had since 2014, again, completely gone. I don't know what happened, just gone. So now, at 6 weeks or April 4th, he says, I'm bored. I'm going back to work. I'm like, okay, fine with me. He feels that good. He's walking great. His everything functioning basically fine. Now, when he went into the hospital, his M spike, which is the multiple myeloma marker, was an 8.05, right? Now today, he has completely regained his weight. He's completely regained his muscle strength, which he had lost, of course, in the hospital. He lost everything. And that's absolutely back now. And he's completely up to weight. And his M spike is down to a 1.42. So while it's not 100%, I don't think it'll ever get to 0.0 where it needs to be normal, but I think we can get pretty close, And honestly, I mean, in this short span of time, we're talking about really 5.5 months from going into the hospital to being really in fantastic shape. And the upshot of all of this is August 8th, Tom drove 10 hours with me. He wouldn't let me drive, but he drove 10 hours and we went to Bar Harbor, Maine, where we celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary on August 10th. I'm sorry. I don't think in a million years that would have happened if it had not been for meat. If it had not been for carnivore, none of that would have ever happened. This is my honest belief. And so, we're just going to keep going. with him. And he, of course, now is a dedicated carnivore, even though he had to be brought into it kicking and screaming and, under threat of divorce. But, it's true. It really is true. I was not kidding around. Let me tell you something. I was dead serious. I was not going to put up with it. And I knew it would help him. I just did. I just instinctively knew that carnivore would help him. So I just went for it. And it also for myself, while I'm not at the weight that I want to be, I have been a lot, major time better. I'd like to give a shout out to my Revero coach, Kiki, who has done a fantastic job with me as someone who is what I consider a gutter level sugar addict. I believe I became a sugar addict at the age of 5. I stole money to go buy candy without telling my parents what I was doing. But I did. To me, that's gutter level sugar addiction. And of course, being raised with the typical, you have to count every calorie, thing, which is hard to kick. It's really hard to let go of. So I've had a lot of problems with that. So big shout out to Kiki, who's been working with me. And I feel like I'm doing much, much better because of it. And maybe you could summarize it in 5 words and say, just shut up and eat more meat. I think for sugar addicts, sometimes that's the answer, shut up. You're not going to CVS's candy aisle, go to the fridge, get some meat that you put in there for yourself and eat it. And it's just that simple to me. So that's basically my story.
Well, wow. I can just say, wow, that's amazing. There's a lot of things going on there. And I just, from the few minutes I've interacted with you, it sounds like you don't shy back from what you want to get done. So I think your husband didn't have a choice from listening to you. So
He did not.
good for you. Good for you. Good for you. You made the right decision. It turns out, I would say. So, hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success. Let me ask you, because you had endometrial cancer. I know there was I don't know if you mentioned, I saw something about you had a lot of knee pain that went away as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I had joint pain. It went in 10 days.
Wow.
This is going back to 2016. It was gone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I did not have any other major problems at that time. It was just, this bleeding out, which was so scary. And everybody that I meet and tell this story to, like, oh, yeah, well, they got it all. Well, okay, that's certainly a possibility, although in life I have never really heard that before. I've never heard cancer just, they got it all. But this isn't in my vocabulary, but still, I have to tell you, even just eating as much meat as I did in those days, I forgot that I was supposed to be sick. I literally, I obviously wasn't bleeding out anymore, but I forgot. I just went on with life. I was eating a lot of meat. I was eating it probably 3-4 weeks, then having a little breakdown, but I kept doing it. I kept going back to it. I really do believe in my heart that meat is the answer, So yeah. And my follow-up after that was just to get a blood test and I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you if like I said, once you've got a cancer diagnosis, usually some long-term follow-up with it, whether it's imaging or some other modality. And then I guess with your husband, with the multiple myeloma, I guess, a lot of times we see that's diagnosed through something called a bone survey. And so they just take pictures of every bone in your body and see where all the lesions are. In addition to some of the serology with like the different M spikes and things like that. And so,
they did do a full body MRI, Dr. Baker,
okay.
But I think that the problem was not considered horrible. Like, a lot of people are much worse than an 8, for an M spike, that he was probably middle of the road.
Yeah.
He wasn't the worst, he wasn't the best, kind of thing. So it seems that the only thing that was affected in him were these upper 2 vertebrae, which now he has no problem with whatsoever. There's no backache. There's nothing. So
yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I wonder, if they were to re-image his back, if they've seen some resolution, because typically you see these lytic lesions, and then what happens is the vertebra collapses, and you're exactly right. There's something called a vertebroplasty or a kyphoplasty. In both of those procedures, you kind of just you kind of balloon up the vertebra, and then the other one you inject that cement in there. And I remember when they came out with those about 25 years ago, and it was
Well, it
kind of
works,
considered.
that's for sure.
Well, it can, and some people it is, some people it doesn't work. But it's good to hear, obviously, and you guys are both. I mean, clearly, I mean, just outside of the cancer diagnoses, just general quality of life is better. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, no question, no question. I'm thrilled, and I'm also thrilled that I have a husband who understands what I want to do and is now doing it with me, which was really hard. Before when I didn't have his support, and he wanted to eat nothing but pasta basically and sugar, it was harder for me to stay on board. So, I think our lives have improved enormously because he's now doing this with me, and so now he understands our money goes to state.
Yeah.
It's not going to anything else. And this is what I want. And to get that support was huge, because now he understands, we go to the store, we don't kid around, we buy slabs. We buy massive amounts of meat, and right, and then the refrigerator is full, the freezer is full. I feel better, and it's important where it wasn't before. So that's huge for me,
Yeah. And then of course, obviously the critics of this would say, well, you could have just done that with, balanced diet of eating whole foods and that type of stuff. I mean, that's what I often hear. And they say, well, because you are now eating all this saturated fat, you may be putting yourself at higher risk for cardiovascular disease. What is your opinion on that particular sentiment?
Well, because I got the CAC score of 13, I think it's utter BS. Also Tom recently had an echocardiogram, right, where they take a picture of his heart. So he didn't get a CAC score, but he did get an echo, as we call it. And his doctor was like, oh man, you're in great shape. So, I don't know. I mean, I also don't hear of carnivores falling over from heart attacks. I don't know about you and your experience on, for instance, World Carnivore Tribe or blah, blah, blah. I don't hear people having heart attacks because of the amount of meat they eat. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, there was one fellow that found some blockage in his heart, but he had significant cardiac disease before he started the carnivore diet. And so 5 years later, 3 years later, he said he was having some palpitations, and they went in and saw, hey, you have blockages. And so whether that was there pre-existing or not, it's hard to know because he never had the appropriate imaging would have told him that. We know he had significant heart disease before he started, but I certainly am not seeing it at a higher rate than the general population. That's the question. What are you comparing it to? Are there going to be people on a carnivore diet that get cancer and heart disease? Probably, yeah, sure, of course. But is that rate higher than the standard American diet population? I'd say probably not. I mean, and I haven't seen it.
I seriously couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
I find that very hard to believe. Tom is now in better shape than he was before he had his diagnosis. Mm-hmm. He's definitely in a healthier position. Other than his platelets number that the medicine messes up. He's on something called Revlimid. It's a chemo. Mm-hmm. And every time, it's a 3 week on, 1 week off. Every time he goes off of it, his platelet numbers go up, right? Every time he goes back on it, the platelet numbers go off. So of course, we faced down his oncologist who said, yeah, it affects your platelets number. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's not the disease. That's your Revlimid. That's your chemo.
Right. Okay.
So, sorry. Right.
Yeah, so he's on. How long is he supposed to take that for? Any idea?
Well, that's just it. We're trying to find out because I'm not into oncologists. I just don't think that they're terribly honest. But they wanted him to do a stem cell transplant, and we said no because it's so risky, and we just felt it wasn't necessary given how healthy he is now. And given that his M spike number has fallen so beautifully and continues, I'm sure will continue to fall. I'm trying to find out, we'll see if I'm successful. I'm trying to find out when we can go on maintenance. And I think maintenance for multiple myeloma is a continuation, maybe of a lower dose of Revlimid. And you're on that basically for life. I don't know, but I'm hearing that from others who have had this, who do have this, that's what they're doing. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there were some people say, well, it's just a medicine. It's not the diet. It's the medicine. And you had surgery, and it wasn't the diet. It's you had surgery, and it maybe it eradicated, maybe it didn't. I don't know. Individually, I don't know off the top of my head the remission rates of endometrial cancer and how effective surgery is and what its recurrence rate is. The same thing with multiple myeloma. You'd have to look that stuff up, but certainly, I mean, you you would be able to say that my overall health is dramatically improved, which I think is
dramatically.
Yeah.
Seriously, I talk to Tom now. I mean, he's like, I can't believe how good I feel.
Yeah.
You know, he's 66 like me. So his knees were a mess from being a carpenter his whole life, you know, and he had all sorts of joint problems. I mean, he's like, I can't believe how good this is. I'm like, yeah, hello, good morning. Only been trying to tell you this for the last 5 years, you know? So, you know, but yeah, no, you know, something, yes, you can make an argument that it's the medicine. No. But I'm sorry. He is in such good shape right now. I would dare anybody to find me somebody with multiple myeloma 5 months after diagnosis who looks like Tom. You know what I mean? Yeah. I really would dare you. I just don't think it exists.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, regardless, it's a great story either way, and I think it's wonderful to see that. Now, so any other family members? Did you have any? I know you mentioned your daughter passed away. I'm sorry about that. But any other children in the family, or any like brothers, sisters? Anybody like?
No, nobody else. Everybody else is fine.
Okay.
There's no other cancer in the family. And I have to say about my daughter, and you know, I love her dearly, but my daughter drank. My daughter smoked. My daughter ate crap. My daughter was, you know, typical sad eater, very overweight. I mean, I'm sorry. I am not a believer, and maybe this is your fault. I am not a believer that cancer just falls out of the sky and hits you. I'm sorry. I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, I think she had something to do with this, you know, glioblastoma. That's what it's called. You know, I think that there is a correlate. I mean, to me, you know, it just didn't jump out of the sky and said, okay, it's your turn. You know, my daughter, you know, unfortunately decided that she was going to go with, you know, she worked for Columbia Presbyterian as an echo tech. So she had a lot of pressure on her from her beloved people at Columbia to go traditional medicine, you know, so I didn't get very far with her. And I sort of feel like, you know, it was her choice and her path in a way. You know, I'm sad that she's not here. Trust me, I'm very sad, but it's not like that. I sort of feel like, you know, this was her choice, and I took my choice how I wanted to deal with my cancer diagnosis. You know, and obviously Tom had no choice about how he was going to deal with his. But it looks like, you know, at least for the two of us, it has worked out very well. You know, but no, there's no other cancer in the family.
How did the rest of your relatives? You said everybody else is doing well. How do they respond to the fact that you're eating this crazy all meat diet? Are they like, what's, you know, think you're nuts? Or
you know, my husband won't let me tell anybody. This is very funny. We went to a family gathering, and everybody is sort of around our age group, and they're all sick. I mean, one thing and the other. I mean, they're just all a mess. And one of the older guys says to all of us, a whole table, about 20 people, so how's everybody dealing with your illnesses? And I started to say something, and my husband kicked me under the table because he knew that I was going to say something like, I have no problems. And here I am eating, you know, 2 hamburgers, because it's all I could get was 2 hamburgers without buns, you know, kind of thing. And he was eating, you know, something similar. But nobody wanted to know anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, just sweep that under the carpet. We don't want to know, you know, what those crazy people down there are doing. They just weren't really interested. And I think there is a mentality, you know, that goes along with, oh, I'm older, and, you know, this is the sicknesses we get when we're older, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I saw that in action, because they're, you know, some of them were not in good shape, like really not in good shape. And when I actually approached somebody privately to talk about it, and they just didn't want to know. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I think, a mindset that's just not interested. They're just going to go along with what their doctor tells them. And I have tried, you know, I really have. Yeah,
I think a lot of people, and unfortunately, particularly as they get older, they just kind of resign themselves to, this is who I am, I'm sick, and I need these sort of supports, and I like these supports, and I get some kind of secondary gain from playing the sick role, unfortunately. You'd mentioned, you know, I want to just sort of delve into this a little more. You mentioned you were a gutter level sugar addict, you know, like you said, stealing money as a little kid so you could buy candy and stuff like that. How does this diet, because, you know, like I said, there's a lot of people that don't think sugar is addictive at all. There's a lot of people that make that argument. There are a lot of people who would say, hell yeah, it is, and I'm very addicted to it. But how was carnivore unique for you in its ability to relieve you of that addiction? How did that work for you?
100%. One of the things I learned with carnivore, Dr. Baker, was that not only did it hit, you know, the cravings issue, right, which, you know, go away, I also learned, that I wanted to try and get away with eating Equal and Splenda, right?
Mhm.
Which are, have dextrose in them. I thought this would be cute on my part. I could eat those too and it would be fine. Everything would be good. I couldn't do it. I kept craving eating meat and let's say putting Equal in coffee just was not working for me. And I was like, had to mourn it, kind of thing. It was so sad for me. But as soon as I gave that crap up, right? As soon as I gave the Equal and the Splenda up, I had zero cravings, zero, like none. Then for me as an addict, I need to stay away from things. Like I need to stay away from, let's say, certain websites or certain people who would push that on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who, I'm not really good seeing it, smelling it, being around it. I kind of had to cut myself off a little bit. But I'm okay with it. I'm an addict. I'm okay with it. I know that there are places I can't go, like an alcoholic should not be in a bar, right? I can't go to CVS's candy aisle. Not a good idea for me. In a bad neighborhood, that kind of thing. Truth. And I really was an addict at 5 years old because what other kid goes into her father's pocket while he's sleeping and steals money and then convinces her mother to let her downstairs at 5 years old in New York City? Okay, where I probably go to the corner and I give the guy the $3. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just say, give me candy. And I remember this because I got caught doing it. Right. So it's seared in my brain, how bad this situation was. But something, this was my MO until I could work. I stole money. I stole candy. I did whatever I could to get sugar. And this lasted seriously until out of high school and I could actually get a job and have my own money to buy that stuff. Right. It was really bad. And I know what my limits are, but in terms of meat, and something that Kiki really taught me, have a bunch of it cooked and ready to go, put it in a plastic, container, and if you're thinking about, cheating, go get some, put it in your mouth, and keep doing that until the moment passes. And it does pass. And that really is a message. It does pass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of these cravings are tied to hormone fluctuations, things like ghrelin and some of the other, appetite hormones. So what, you've been doing this, I guess now, about 6 years? So you mentioned 2016, so we're 2022, almost, we're getting close to 2020.
I'm going to say on and off for 6 years.
And
I'm purely dedicated to it now. Since January, really, I've been purely dedicated to carnivore. Yeah.
And what does that look like for you? What does a typical day, week of eating look like for you?
A typical day would be a strip steak for breakfast. I like strip steaks. Yeah. I buy them by the slab. It's got lots of fat. And I do generally either a ribeye or a bacon omelet or something like that for lunch. I'm getting to the point where I don't need another meal so much anymore, which is really nice. But a strip steak and a ribeye are really my big go-tos. They're the things I like to eat. I like the fat. I also like a tenderloin every now and then. We'll get the big slab of a tenderloin, which has the fat on it. Yeah. And we'll cut those up. And to me, those are delicious too. But I think a strip is really my favorite. And I tend to go for that for breakfast. I want a lot of meat first thing in the morning. That's who I am. Mm-hmm. And it helps me to get through the rest of the day, Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically it sounds like it's just basically some sort of form of meat, steak and eggs, basically. Is that pretty much a limitation of the diet? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I do not, have to be honest, I do not eat organ meats.
Mm-hmm.
They're not something I like to even look at. I'm so sorry. I know you guys love it.
No, I don't eat them. I don't eat them either.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I know that because I've listened to you. Mm-hmm. But I do take the ancestral liver and organ supplements just because, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I don't even do that.
Yeah, I don't know. But something, Tom takes them too, and I think it is good for him.
Mm-hmm.
I almost take them more for just support him,
Mm-hmm.
But I think for him, for right now, for healing, it's probably not a bad thing,
Yeah, fair enough.
But, yeah.
And are you exclusively consuming sort of grass-finished meat, or does it matter for you?
No.
What? Yeah.
No, I don't care. Is it red meat? I'll eat it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I like to get a prime. Mm-hmm. If I can afford it at the time, I'll get prime. But I am not into grass. Give me all the fat. I'm not necessarily into grass fat. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I think there's more fat on a prime, steak
Mm-hmm.
That's what I go for, you know.
Well, yeah, there certainly is. And it certainly tastes better. I mean, I think,
Definitely.
you know, I think
Absolutely.
if there's one thing we know how to make steaks taste very good here in the U.S., you know, particularly.
I'm so glad.
You know, and that brings up the point, you know, they're the sort of the bigger picture. There's, you know, you can't, you know, not notice there's a sort of a push towards everyone to cut back on meat and start eating more plant-based. And that's I mean, as someone who's survived cancer and has dramatically improved their life and their quality of life, how does that impact you? Would you like be happy if you were, you know, they made meat either tax it so much or made it so unaffordable that you couldn't consume it? How would that impact your life?
Oh, obviously it would impact my life on a very huge scale. You know, I'm thinking that, you know, you as the leader of our of our pride should get us all together and we should buy our own, you know, cattle ranch and, you know, feed ourselves with it. But yeah, no, obviously it would be a huge problem, but I think it's a huge problem for everybody. You know, this is not just as carnivores, but other people who, you know, do consume meat on a, you know, not regular basis, but, you know, every now and then, at least they're getting some protein. You know, the health of a huge population would just start falling down. I mean, is that really what you want? You know, in the end, I think this hurts everyone. And I am vehemently against, you know, the vegan / whatever it is community pulling the crap they're pulling. I mean, I'm with you on it. I'm not as loud about it, but I'm certainly with you on this. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. It scares me. And I think we just have to keep fighting it, you know?
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think it is something, and it's not a time to be passive and just let the forces play out to the way they want to do. Because it's always, you know, there was a recent paper came out looking at the more plant-based you go, and, you know, they looked at the more likely you were to consume processed foods and ultra processed, you know, junk food basically. And certainly the younger you start, the more likely that was to be the case. And so basically by removing meat from the diet, you're just replacing it with more just, you know, industrial processed human, what I call human pet food. Right. And that doesn't do anyone any good at all.
And I think the problem, of course, just like with us with junk food, is that it's maybe not going to affect you right away, right?
Right.
Your teeth aren't going to start falling out right away. You know, you're not going to get cancer right away. You know, it's all that connectivity that you can't figure out until you're whatever age, and then you're really sick. And that's what's so sad, is that they won't know as vegans or whatever they are, right? You know, that they're going to go downhill, you know, at some point, and they won't make the connection, right? Or they'll refuse to make the connection between what they're eating and their health, you know?
Yeah, I see it. I see that every single week when I do my consultations with people. I get it usually almost every week, at least one or two ex-vegans. And there are a lot of ex-vegans in this little chat right now. I'm sure, you know, there's some that would say, yeah, it eventually caught up with me. And sometimes it takes many decades in many cases. Do you, outside of just switching diet, was there anything else you did that helped with, you know, either your husband or yourself improve your health?
I have to be honest, no. I really just focused on meat. Mm-hmm. Meat was the most important thing to me, you know, not just to me, but, you know, when it came to Tom, you know, this wasn't, oh, should we throw in some asparagus? I was like, F no, we don't throw in asparagus. You know what I mean? This is not something we're doing. Because, you know, he's an old Italian, you know, I mean, old school Italian. I'm like, no, we're not throwing in vegetables. You know, and so I have to be honest, I was very focused with him and still am on just meat. And at this point, bacon and eggs, a little lamb. But again, maybe once a week we're doing lamb, but very focused on that. I have not done anything else, you know, other than an ancestral liver capsule, which is, you know, what is it? Dehydrated liver. I mean, it's not a chemical. It's not, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's it. That's it. We haven't done anything else. You know, a little lobster when we went to Maine.
Yeah, because there are people that they'll see me, and I'm a guy that's always exercising, working out, and competing as an athlete. Say, well, you have to be an athlete to do a carnivore diet. I said, no, that's actually not the case. In fact, most people that started out doing this were doing it purely for healing purposes. They weren't athletes, and it's now kind of a later thing where some athletes have adopted this with good success.
No, you have to force me to walk. I'm not athletic, unfortunately. It's sort of a dream of mine to be much more athletic than I am. Yeah. But the truth is, I am not. I am not athletic. Tom is not athletic, other than walking, which he does quite a bit of on his job. Yeah. But I am not, and it is not a focus of ours at all.
Well, you seem like you have plenty of energy, at least, at least from talking to you. So it sounds like you just kind of constantly, maybe, I'm guessing, doing things, probably would be my guess.
I do a dog boarding and a dog daycare sitting business out of my house.
Okay.
I actually have a room in the back where I've got quite a few of them right now waiting for me. But yeah, no, and I run around with them, yes, but I'm not athletic. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm not,
sure.
and I think that meat and getting rid of sugar has given me a lot of energy. I have, and I get up very early. I get up at 4 a.m, take care of the dogs. And then at, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, I fall out hard. I sleep like a baby kind of thing. And I love it. I think it's perfect. I get a good night's sleep. Good
for you. And certainly as people get older and older, sleep quality often deteriorates, and a lot of people find they don't sleep well. That's really a godsend to be able to get a good night's sleep, because it has such a just an overall positive impact on us. So your husband, you said, for the 5 years that he was watching you eat just meat, and now he's experienced himself. Does he talk about going back to eating other stuff, or is he totally on board, satisfied?
He jokes around with it. He'll say to me, "Oh, I'm going out for pizza." On your deathbed, you're going out for pizza. No, he jokes about it, but he knows inherently that this was the right thing to do. It took a little work, but now, when he sees himself and he goes to treatment on Wednesdays at Sloan Kettering here by us where we live, he sees what people are going through, who are very, very sick. Yeah. So he knows that there's a real difference here between him and them, right? So this has really been a good solidifier for him that meat was the answer, and also that it feels so good. It feels great. It's hard to argue with that, right?
Yeah. Has he noticed he feels stronger, or has he made any comments to that?
He says he's back to where he was before he got sick. So he lifts probably between 40, 45 pounds easily. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem for him. He had an MRI recently where, they said, it looks like everything's healing. And, there was nothing negative on that MRI. So we were happy with that. But he doesn't see him, we'd like to retire in 5 years. We'd like him to, get out of there and start fishing or whatever. Right. But at this point in time, other than this stupid M spike number, that we know could be problematic, that's all it is. I mean, there is nothing else, it's all we've got here.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as, his, I guess, I guess for both of you guys, did you guys notice any difference in mental health, like mood, cognition, any of those things change for you guys since you started doing this?
For him and I both, I would say yes. When Tom, of course, first got sick, he was massively depressed because he thought he was going to die, right? He had this vision of him dying. I didn't have that, but he did. And so that took a while to get him out of that. But it was in the beginning when he was also still on a lot of painkillers and life wasn't good. And oh my God, right? So as he started to come out of that phase and, realizing he wasn't going to die and the M spike kept coming down, he started to feel better and better. So I think now there's no issue with him whatsoever. For me, I think that prior to going full carnivore, I was just always, I don't want to say depressed. I don't think that's a really good term for me. More like just constantly angry at myself and, having such a hard time dealing with myself as a sugar addict, So, I don't want to say that was a mental issue, but it was certainly problematic because it was hard for me to get around. You know what I mean? It was hard for me to be happy in the day, so to speak, or energetic in the day. I was just constantly wanting to go out and eat more sugar, because it's dog eat dog, addiction. So, and that's gone. I'm thrilled, thank you, Kiki. I'm thrilled that, I have a lot of meat in my refrigerator that's cooked already that I can just, I cut it up, I eat it, I'm happy. I mean, this was a really good idea, which I hadn't really come up with before. I'd spoken to Kiki about it. It was a fabulous idea. Just make sure there's always meat that you can eat in the fridge. It sounds so simple, right? But I'd never really thought about it before. And so now, if there's even a small chance that I might want to think about, falling off, oh, there's somebody at my door. Okay. Anyway, that I just go and I just eat it. I'm fine,
Yeah. That does. I mean, because we've gotten so, I guess, lured in by the ease of convenience. We've got companies that have made food so convenient for us. You just open a package and we can get all this sort of energy and calories, which comes with I think a price tag in the end. And, to sit there and say, well, I've got to cook a steak, which might take, for me, in my case, it's, 5 minutes. I can do it pretty quickly, but even still having something ready to go, I can make a big difference, particularly when you're, you got some cravings going on, you just need something. And I found something that works. I think those, there's sort of now commercially things like carnivore snacks, carnivore crisp types of things, which quite are good. But making the same thing at home yourself with a little food dehydrator, throw a little salt on there. And
I actually did take the carnivore snacks to Maine with me, to tell you the truth, because I felt uncomfortable not knowing where I could buy meat or meat. And even though there's lobsters everywhere, I wanted red meat. So just to be on the safe side, actually, I took the carnivore snacks with me. And I think they're good in a pinch. Wouldn't want to eat them otherwise, But I think as an emergency food, they were probably, perfect,
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're just meat and salt. What are your thoughts on salts? There's some people that are anti-salt.
I'm big into Redmond salt. I love it. I eat it constantly. I put it on everything.
Got it. Okay.
Because if I don't, I will get cramps in my calves, mostly calves and shins. My feet sometimes, but if I don't eat it, I'm in trouble. Yeah.
Well, this has been very, very fun and very good and good for you. And have you met with the physicians? Have the physicians been aware of what you and your husband are doing nutritionally? Have they sort of talked about it, discussed it, told you to stop immediately or anything like that?
No. Something I haven't. I don't, Dr. Baker, I don't have faith in, physicians like that. I just don't. I think, Tom's working with this oncologist. I don't have a lot of faith in her either, but, I'm sure that she means well. He's pushing for the stem cell transplant and we're refusing it. And, I'm just in great shape. I'm in great health. There's just nothing wrong with me. I'm not going to go to somebody and let them have an argument with me. I expect that, as I'm obviously 66 and my hormones are not what I wish they were, that I will lose weight slowly, that it will come off. It'll just come off very slowly. And that's got to be okay with me. I can't rush this. This isn't on my timetable. It's going to have to be on my body's timetable, but no, I have not gone to a doctor. I have not done any of that.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because, there's usually a couple of responses. Very commonly, it's, oh my God, this is crazy. You have to stop immediately. Here's a statin, go on a low-fat plant-based diet. Or some of them will say, oh, great, keep doing what you're doing. And then there's a third, which is very rare, but they'll actually be curious and say, well, tell me more and let me learn about it. And how can I apply it to my other patients, which unfortunately are exceedingly rare, the physicians that are interested in doing that. And a lot of them, they just don't have time, quite honestly, and they don't, it's tough. But well, this has been really, really fun and very enlightening. And I thank you for doing this. And congratulations on your success with this and your husband's and all those things. And keep up the good work. Hopefully your husband will let you guys tell the rest of the family so they can, you can some benefit too. Have you shared this with anyone else in the world? I mean, is this just you kind of keep to yourself? Or?
Sure. Yeah. Lots of personal friends that I shared it with.
Oh, okay. And
they all think I'm lunatic.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
They all think I'm crazy and there's Melissa. Nobody is interested, unfortunately. I'm just treated like the strange one.
Look at that strange.
And that's fine. I don't care. They can do that. You know what I mean? They can feel that way about me.
Yeah. Look at that weirdo not popping pills and walking around with a walker and stuff like that. Yeah.
I have a very good friend. When I had stopped doing carnivore for a little while, my blood pressure went crazy. Right. Oh, she said, just go on medicine. That's what everybody does. And I looked at her and I said, no, I'm not going to go on medicine. And I cleaned up my diet and I went strict carnivore. And sure enough, my blood pressure went normal. It's still normal. I've had it done recently. It's still normal. So, they are just so ingrained. It's such an ingrained thing to think that medicine is the answer. And I am just not going there. I'm not going there.
Let me ask you.
I want to die like Queen Elizabeth, okay?
Yeah.
I want to be walking 2 days with a cane before I die and then just die, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy and just, that's it. It's over. I think that's the way to go, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
96 years old. She's walking with a cane and 2 days later it's bye. I'm like, yeah.
Do you I just thought of this just because you have a dog boarding business. I mean, do you have your own personal dogs? And if so, what do you feed your dogs? And do you have any, like, when somebody comes in with a fat, bloated, arthritic, smelly dog that you're boarding, do you ever like say, hey, maybe you can clean up their diet?
Oh, I do, and they hate me for it, but I do, because it's awful when you see these people giving their food, their dogs crap food. And I do. I try to steer them to obviously raw and natural, which is what I give my dog. I have a German Shepherd mix. And at the very least, I try to get them into a product called Stella and Chewy's, which is a freeze-dried, raw food.
Mm-hmm.
So it's commercially available, and it's something they can handle. And I actually have gotten quite a few of my clients, and I have about 100, to do that. Okay. So, and they like it because their dogs love it. It's great food, but yes, my dog, I give her a combination of Stella and Chewy's and meat. I give her both. Okay. But yeah, and I am a big proponent of doing that because I can't stand this labs at 13 coming down with cancer. What the F is that? What is that? I mean, that is not natural. That is not right.
Mm-hmm.
I get very upset about it. I'm like, what are you giving your dog to eat? And then you look at the crap food they're giving them and you're like, of course, this is why your dog is getting sick. It shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of dogs are getting brain cancer, which is kind of interesting. And it's,
Who'd heard of that? Exactly. When dog gets brain cancer, I'm sorry, this is insanity to me. So yeah, I try to work with my clients. Most of them actually are very good about it. A couple of them, again, think I'm crazy. And, there's Melissa. But, yeah, I do really try because I love the dogs and I want to see them healthy. And, there's only so much I can do, with some of my clients. But I absolutely do believe in raw, and I believe in meat, and I do the best I can, at least, right?
Yeah,
that's a big subject for me.
Are you someone that's active on social media? Do you participate?
I'm on Twitter. I follow you on Twitter.
Okay. Well, if you're interested in sharing any of that stuff, do so there. If you want to tell people that live in, because you said you were in, what state were you in again?
I'm in Tappan, New York.
Oh, New York. Maybe someone who's in that area that needs to have their dog taken care of. Just let people know where to find you if you're interested in that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I am interested. Great. So thank you very, very much.
Okay. So how would somebody wanted to drop their dog off find you?
I am really actually mostly word of mouth, but I have my business is called K9 Inn at Livingston Street in Tappan, New York.
Okay.
And if anybody's writing things down, it's 845-323-6988. And that is my business number.
Okay.
And that's how you can reach me. But
awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, keep up the great work. You're definitely going to inspire some people. It was fun to interview.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
And unfortunately, like I said, I got to go do some consultation now myself. So anyway, thanks to you guys. We'll be back tomorrow. We got another success story tomorrow. So thanks for everybody joining. Kiki, it's good seeing you again. I hadn't seen you in a while, but anyway, everybody take care and see you guys later. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Baker.
Bye-bye now.